Hi. How's everyone doing? Wow, this is a very different view from yesterday. Thanks for coming out. My name is Thibaut. I'm a dev lead at Shopify and project lead for the new online store editor. In this session, we're going to show you how the new editor makes it easier than ever to customize online stores and how this is an opportunity for you, our partners, to create even more value for our merchants. I've been working on this project for almost a year now with a fantastic group of people across all of our offices, so I couldn't be more happy to get a chance to show you what we came up with in person on this amazing stage. But before we talk about code and opportunity, I'm going to invite Russel to the stage, who's going to show you a preview of the new editor.
Hi, I'm Russel. I'm a designer at Shopify. Now, I've been working on the online store editor for the past year. Before we take a look at what we've made, I'd like to show you a little bit of history of how editing your online store has changed over time. Let's take a look at that. So in 2014, editing your online store looks something like this. There are a lot of different settings all in one place. It's one big form. It's hard to navigate. On top of all that, it was completely out of context. You had no idea what any of your changes would do until you opened a new preview and kept reloading every time. So in 2015, we introduced Storefront Editor. And for the first time, we made it possible to preview your changes while you're making any changes in the sidebar. It's really great. Now this year, we're taking it to a whole new level by making it even easier to customize content with even more focus, and also adding completely new functionality like the abilities to add, remove, and reorder content whenever you need. We're also going to empower our developer community to make great content tools for merchants to use. Now, I'd like for you to imagine that you operate an outdoor sports store. I'm going to walk you through how quickly and easily you can get set up with something that's both beautifully designed and has all the features you need. Let me walk you through a portion of that. So here we have our home page for Outdoor Sports Store in the new editor. You can see that we have the preview on the left and the sidebar on the right. Now, you may notice that in the sidebar, a few things have changed. We have a lot less settings than we used to. We're calling these groups of settings sections. So here we can see we have 4 sections on this page. We have a header, we have a slideshow, a mailing list, and a footer. Now, there are actually 2 different types of sections. Those that can be reordered, like the slideshow, and those that are locked in place, like the header, mailing list, and footer you see there. Now, on this homepage, right now we have 4 sections, but you could have as few or as many as you need as a merchant. It's completely up to you. OK, so now that we've seen a bit of that, let's take a look at how we can customize our header. So to do that, we just click on header. And when we click on header, 2 things happen. We'll notice that in the preview, we've actually dimmed out the rest of the page, so we're only highlighting the header. And in the sidebar, we're showing only the settings that are relevant to the header. This is really cool. This means that we're only showing the settings that make sense for whatever kind of edit you're doing. OK, so that's one way we can get at our content, but there's also another way. Let's click back to go back to the page level. And then let's actually go and click on the header directly in the preview. So we'll just move over our mouse, click on it there, and you'll see we have the exact same result. This is what we want for any kind of editing you're doing in the editor. It's a great experience. You click on the content, and you see all the customization options. So you might be wondering, where are all the site-wide settings we used to have? Well, those still exist, but there's a lot less of them, and we only show them when they're necessary. OK, so let's continue editing this here. Let's go ahead and let's turn on showing a search icon in the header. So we'll click on the checkbox here. And when we do that, the preview updates really quickly. The reason why it's so fast to update is because we're only reloading the header as opposed to the whole page. And once again, this makes for a great, fast experience for merchants. This also relates back to the first goal we had with the new online store editor. Make customizing themes even easier by connecting settings with content. Next, I'd like to show you our second goal with this project, which is adding content to your site. To do that, we'll go back to the page level. So we'll just click on this backdrop here. And then we'll go and click on Add Section. And when we click on Add Section, you'll see that there's this whole new category of sections we can add. Now, all these sections are completely up to the theme designer. They get to determine what sections make sense for their theme. So here we can see we have text, image, video, slideshow, a bunch of them. So let's say I want to add a product section. To do that, we'll just go ahead and click on Product. And as soon as we click on it, we can see we get this great preview of a single featured product that we can even add to cart. Now, this is a really great design if you sell one product, but what if you want to show multiple products? It's really easy. You just click on Next, and you'll see that the preview updates again, showing us 2 great products. Now, what's really interesting to note here is that these 2 products you see, they aren't hard-coded into the theme. They're what we call blocks. So in this case, we have 2 product blocks within this section. But they don't have to be products. They could be any kind of content, like text, image, video. It's all up to you. So basically, the theme designer has complete control over the sections in their theme, the blocks, and the layouts of both. And in this case, we can see that these 2 blocks are laid out in columns, but they could just as easily be laid out in something a bit more custom, like this. We have 3 products in more of a custom grid. It's a little bit more unique. Now, this is actually the same section we just saw, but instead of showing 2 products, we're showing 3 products here. So how's that possible? Well, sections can dynamically change their layouts depending on the number of blocks and the type of blocks they contain. This means that sections can adapt and always look great no matter what their content is. Now, in early prototypes of the editor, we explored an alternative, which is giving merchants precise control over where they want their content. And you could say, I want to drag this piece of content here, this image there, and that, it would give you a lot of power. But we actually found there are a few drawbacks to this approach. The first one is that merchants don't actually think like designers, and that didn't really work for them. On top of that, it also limited the kinds of interactions you could do on mobile. And lastly, it restricted the kinds of responsive, great layouts you could make. You couldn't make a layout like this with a simple drag and drop interaction. So instead, we went with an approach that allows merchants to stand on the shoulders of great designers and developers and make something that looks really good and has all the functionality they need. So let me walk you through the merchant thought process for adding content, because merchants think content first as opposed to layout-based. So first they think, OK, what's the type of content I want to add? Is it text? Is it image? Is it a video? Once they've decided that, they preview all the different options that the theme designers made available to them. When they find the one that works for them, they add it in, and then they make it their own. Let's go ahead and let's actually make this text section up at the top our own. So we'll click on it, and similarly to the product section we just saw, we have a few different options for it. This one looks pretty good, so let's add that in. We'll click on Add Text Section here. And there we go. It's right in the preview. Now, do you remember when I was talking about limiting the amount of customization options to what you're working on at one time? Here, we're only showing one block in the sidebar, which is text. And that's all we need to see, because that's a simple section. Now, in the current editor, the way you do any kind of text editing is through the sidebar. This isn't great because it forces merchants to think outside of context. So in the new editor, we're going to allow you to do full text editing in the preview. Let's go ahead and add a bit more information about our shop. So we add in that text. And this is starting to look OK, but it's missing a bit of style. So why don't we go ahead and style this header, which says About Us, and let's add a button below. OK, that's looking pretty good. So now that we have your text set up, let's go ahead and add more content to this section. Let's add an image that describes a bit more about our outdoor sports store brand. To do that, we'll just click on Add Content. Now, when we click on Add Content, you can see there's 5 different types of content blocks here. It's totally up to the theme designer to determine how many blocks make sense for that section. So we have text, image, video, map, and testimonial. This section supports a pretty wide range of blocks, but it doesn't have to be like that. They can be more specialized. Do you remember that slideshow section we saw in the video this morning? That one might only support 1 or 2 different types of slides, like a collection-driven slide, or maybe one that's just driven by an image. And that product section, like we just saw, that one might only support 1 type of block. So when you go to add content, it would actually just say add product. So it's totally up to the theme designer there, too. OK, so let's go ahead and add in an image. We'll click on the image block. And when we do, we're now given 2 options. We can either drag and drop an image to upload it, or we can select one from our image library. And we'll be introducing the image library as a feature in the new editor. For now, let's just drop in a file. When we drop it in, we can see that it just perfectly reflows the layout based on how the theme designer intended. This is really powerful. Now I can continue to do this, add more blocks, remove them whenever I don't need them anymore, reorder them when I want to change their importance. And I can also do the same thing for sections, add them, remove them, and reorder. The possibilities are infinite, and everything looks just as great as the theme designer intended. Now, what we've seen is just part of a setup, but it's pretty amazing how quickly you can get something that's both beautifully designed and has all the features that you need. That's the new editor. It makes it even easier than ever to customize your content with focus, and it adds new functionality like being able to add, remove, and reorder content for the first time. It also enables our developer and designer community to make great content tools for merchants to build even better stores. I'm really excited about this. Thibaut is now going to show us how it works on the technical side. Thanks.
Awesome. Merchants are going to love this. So in the early stages of this project, we thought, we have great developers here at Shopify, so why don't we get them to write a really powerful CSS grid, inject it in all new themes, and make the standard sections and blocks ourselves. It's been done before, but we'll do it better. Rigid rows and columns, clunky drag and drop. Shopify needs it. Let's go do it. But then, after a bit more research, we thought, wait, we have great people here at Shopify, but who are we to say that we can write better code than everybody else? Do we really want all themes to look, feel, and work the same? Do we want theme creators to be dependent on us to innovate, or should we improve our platform and let them drive innovation? Well, of course, we went with the second approach. So let me show you how we improve our theme platform to make it easier for you to innovate and create value for our merchants. First, let's look at an existing feature, liquid snippets. Say I'm making a theme, and I want to move the source code of the header in its own file. I can create a snippet called header liquid, which looks something like this. Very easy. Snippets can be rendered anywhere using the include liquid tag. Here, I'm rendering the header in my theme's layout. Now, what if I want the search icon in that header to be customizable in the editor, like in the example Russel showed earlier? Today, I have to add a setting definition in setting schema.json, which contains the definition of every setting in my theme. On most themes, this is a pretty big file. I can then use the global settings variable in my liquid code to read the current value of the setting and conditionally show or hide the search icon. Now, this is also easy to implement, but the problem is that it doesn't tell Shopify that that setting is only used in the header, nor does it enforce it. That's why the current editor always lists every setting in the theme, no matter what page is being displayed in the preview. So how do I make my header appear as a section in the new editor? Easy. I move the file to the sections directory, change include to section to render the section, remove the setting definition from setting schema.json. Thank you. And add it back directly in the section file, in the new schema tag that you're seeing here. Now, this is still a normal liquid file. There are no breaking changes. But now I've attached metadata to that file that tells Shopify about the section and its settings. Here you can see the section is called header, and it has one setting called enable search. And that setting, instead of being a global setting, is now scoped to my header. So I also need to change settings to section.settings in my liquid code. Now, settings are great for customizing static content, but they don't make it easy to add and remove content, which is where blocks come in. So let's switch gears and make a simple grid section like the one we saw earlier. First, I create the file. I can add settings if I want. Then I need to define the blocks for my section. This is also done in the schema tag. Let me show you what the blocks object here looks like. So think about blocks as containers around settings. Here, I've defined two blocks, text and image, each with one setting. And just like that, the merchant can now add to this section as many instances of text and image as he or she wants, using the great interface that we just saw. And the blocks could be anything: video, map, social feed. It's all up to you, the theme creator. Now, before those blocks show up on the page, the section still needs to render them. And this is how you do it. In that grid div here at the top, which could be anything, you loop over the blocks and then use the type attribute of each block to determine what markup to generate. Simple as that. When block.type is text, I output the content of the setting. When block.type is image, I output an image tag. So remember the CSS grid we said we were going to make? This is what we're doing instead. You can use any CSS grid you want, and it doesn't even have to be a grid. You can make a slideshow section where each block is a slide, a social feed section where each block is a social network, or even a gallery section whose layout automatically adapts to its content. You have control over the markup, the settings, the blocks, where the blocks go, and even responsive breakpoints, which means you can make every section and every block look great on all devices. This is really powerful. Before I can add this section here to my home page, I still have to do two things. First, I need to add this tag to my index.liquid template, which tells Shopify where the sections on my home page should go. Then I need to define presets for my section. This is also done in the section schema, so let me show you what the presets array here looks like. Each preset is one section or starting point that the merchant can add. Name and category are what you see here in the UI. Name is pretty straightforward. Category allows you to group presets by content type across multiple section files. In this case, name is one column, and category is text. Going back to the sections, to the schema, settings and blocks are the default configuration and default content of the section that the merchants will get when they add that section. This preset here is for one text block, but I could make more for things like text and image, multiple images, and so on, all in one file. So sections presets allow you to create useful starting points for merchants organized in a way that they understand content first rather than layout first, as well as showcase the capabilities of your sections, all without duplicating a single line of code. OK, so before we end this session, there's one more thing I'd like to talk to you about. Reusable sections. If you're making themes for the theme store, your sections will be tied to your theme, and that's OK. We don't want to force you to write your code any differently than you normally would. But what if you want to reuse your sections across multiple themes, or existing themes, or even themes that you didn't create? Today, this is hard to do because you have to edit multiple files. Liquid, setting schema.json, JavaScript, CSS, which can take a really long time. Sections remove the need to edit setting schema.json because the settings are already defined in the same file. But what about JavaScript and CSS? Could those also go in the same file? The answer is yes. What you see here are two new tags, style sheet and JavaScript, available in section files, which work exactly the way you would expect. Shopify will concatenate them into a single file for all sections, upload it to our CDN, and automatically load it on all pages. This allows you to create sections that can be used on any theme by uploading a single file. So another way to think about sections is as Shopify's take on web components. They allow merchants to quickly and easily create unique online stores by leveraging the skills and talents of designers and developers from all over the world. This is a great opportunity for you to create even more value for our merchants by making more powerful themes and reusable sections. I hope you are as excited about this as we are. I can't wait to see what you're going to come up with. We'll be releasing it later this year. And if you have any questions, Russell and I will be available on Slack, or you can sign up for office hours tomorrow. Thank you.